China ranks #1 in the creation of generative artificial intelligence. What does this mean for the future of AI? Hello, I'm Anand Naidu and this is The Heat. A UN report shows China is leading the world in AI innovation. Over the past 10 years, Chinese inventors have filed more than 38,000 patents. Earlier this month, the UN also unanimously adopted a Chinese-sponsored resolution on strengthening international cooperation in artificial intelligence. It aims to close the gap with developing nations and ensure that all have equal opportunities and access to AI. CGTN's Jody Jacobs has this report from New York.
Artificial intelligence, it's the way of the future. And some may say even for us journalists. And as AI technologies expand, China, it seems, is at the forefront of the global AI race. From Shanghai to Shenzhen, companies are investing heavily in AI-driven innovations, from smart cities to advanced robotics.
There's lots of patents coming out of China in Gen AI and AI more broadly, and I think our report that looks at Gen AI certainly highlights the fact that it's a much more powerful tool than just simple text generation through some of these chatbots that exist online, and that it can really revolutionize many different fields, whether that be in drug development, whether that be in retail, in public transportation, and a wide range of different areas.
In a new report released by the UN's World Intellectual Property Organization, China has filed 6 times more Gen AI patents than the United States. Between 2014 and 2023, the organization says China filed more than 38,000 Gen AI inventions. In comparison, the United States filed just over 6,000 during the same period. Generative AI refers to the use of AI to create new content like text messages, images, music and videos. And the United Nations says this could change the face of industries like publishing, transportation and security. With China already leading this race in the laboratory, its advancements are mirrored on the international diplomatic stage. In early July, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution put forward by China calling for stronger international cooperation on artificial intelligence. China emphasizing the need for all UN member states, no matter how big or small, to enjoy equal opportunities in the design, development and deployment of AI. One such company is Supple, headed by CEO Eldred Jordan, with the aim of not leaving Africa behind.
I've always said, if we are going to reach millions of people, we have to reach them in a way that the technology is accessible, but it speaks to them in their own mother tongue. So we are seeing massive strides being made in how technologies and applications using AI is able to reach millions of people, diverse, but in a localized manner.
In the meantime, the United Nations has also tasked a team of artificial intelligence experts to assemble a plan to help developing countries benefit from this AI boom. Its aim is also to deal with the dangers of AI. The UN has repeatedly warned that AI innovations have the propensity to spread false or misleading information online. The UN predicts AI technology innovation will only increase exponentially in the coming years, making it a more essential part of our daily lives. Like China, the UN warns that no country should be left behind and that wealthy nations must ensure developing countries also fully benefit from these technological advancements. Jody Jacobs, CGTN, New York.
To discuss this and more, let's bring in our guests. Joining us from Austin, Texas, Emil Sayegh is served as CEO for a number of technology firms. From India, we're joined by Jibu Elias. He is an AI ethicist and researcher. From New York, we're joined by Ian Khan. He is a theoretical futurist and author of The Quick Guide to Prompt Engineering and host of The Futurist. And from Xinjiang in China, Andy Mok is a senior research fellow at the Center for China and Globalization. thank you to all of you for joining us. Andy, let me start with you. There was a recent report from the World Intellectual Property Organization, and that report showed that China filed the highest number of generative AI or Gen AI patents. That's over the past decade, 38,000 in total, as we heard from our reporter there. So put this in perspective for us. What does this tell us about the progress of this particular type of technology in China?
Well, Anand, I think, of course, it shows the remarkable progress China is making in this breakthrough technological area. And I think if we look at the words of Charlie Munger, who was Warren Buffett's partner and a legendary investor, he said, "Show me the incentives and I'll show you the results." So I think this is an example of China's ability to do this at scale. A great comparison to this would also be China's development of the electric vehicle and battery market, which started with a conceptual understanding, the development of bureaucratic infrastructure that about 20 years later led to China's unquestioned leadership in this new, also very important technological field. So this explosion of patents, I think, also demonstrates China's ability to link incentives to outcomes at scale.
Emil, great to have you with us on the show. Now, you yourself, you hold 9 patents from IT and IT tech industry. 6 of those 10 applicants of these Gen AI patents all come from China. And China is, of course, home to some of the marquee technology companies in the world right now. What is the driving force behind these advances in China?
Absolutely, yeah. Whenever you set up a patent strategy, of course, not every one of those patents is going to be commercialized and is going to make a lot of money, is going to be used. You set up a defensive strategy by having a multitude of patents that are around a certain technology, and I believe this is basically the strategy of a lot of these Chinese companies. But to take a step back, the rapid advancement in generative AI patents out of China really is a result of the commitment of a centralized policy of the Chinese government in conjunction with industry to essentially move into this AI field in force. These companies have shown to be extremely resilient despite the U.S. sanctions that have been imposed and despite the shortage of AI chips. And then, certainly despite, I think, the next challenges that are going to be coming up with scarcity of power to supply power to a lot of these AI data centers that are essentially processing this data.
Jibu, taking a look at the leading nations with these kinds of inventions, I mean, we've mentioned China a moment ago, and it's followed by the Republic of Korea, Japan, India, then the United Kingdom, and then Germany. Until not so long ago, and I'm saying, a few decades ago, we would have expected this kind of technology to come mainly from the United States and Western Europe, but now we see the progress that Asia is making in the development of this technology. I mean, what does this tell us about this shift from, the traditional places where technology was developed now to Asia?
I think there is nothing surprising when it comes to China's the patent achievement. It is just another milestone. It's long focus on AI. For example, if you know, the top 50 AI researchers in the world are from China. China leads in terms of AI papers published. China leads 70% on US in terms of AI papers cited. So it's not surprised that this particular accomplishment will fall with China, but we had to also look into what is happening in other countries like India. For example, till 2014, India didn't have a single patent on AI. But by the time 2022 arrived, we were eighth country in terms of AI patents filed. So every country is aware of the importance of this technology and the need to build their resources, the capacity, the computing capacity, and the governance and regulatory system. So all are starting earlier on to build this technology especially for military applications and for economic development. So that's what we are seeing. And it's also interesting to see how many of the countries in the global south, especially African countries like Rwanda, Kenya, are all doing their own effort in AI. Of course, there are a lot of limitations for these countries, especially in terms of infrastructure capacity, hardware capabilities. But despite that, we are seeing a very, very interesting and impressive push by these global south countries in this space.
Ian Khan, great to have you with us on the show. Now, the number of AI patents overall increased by more than 800% through 2023. Gen AI patents only represent 6% of global AI patents. So just what is the difference between those two kinds of patents that we're talking about here, and why is that 6% so low?
So two different things. A patent can cover many different things, and when you talk about AI-related patents, it could be within 100 different things within AI. Generative AI over the last couple of years has become really, really popular, specifically with platforms like OpenAI, Google doing their own version, and others that are becoming really popular. So the focus is a lot on generative AI over the last few years. I really see this increasing because we're just getting started with generative AI. It's not that old, whereas some other areas of artificial intelligence have been out there for at least 10, 20 years. In the forecast, I really hope there's an avalanche of more patents being filed from China, from India, from other countries who are working towards this, and it's really and truly a golden period for AI, as these patents tell us.
And Ian, when we talk about generative AI, is this the kind of technology that continues to learn by itself? Is that what that means?
Well, completely depends on the algorithm, but generative AI can create different things, text, audio, video, with data that's been provided to it, and algorithms tell it how to create things, how to produce that. So that's essentially generative AI, which is around creativity or increasing the volume of any output that can be used subsequently.
Right, Emil, when we look at AI in general, I mean, China also leads in the number of patents, almost 390,000. That's nearly 75% of global AI patents. How significant is that number?
Very significant, and really speaks to the commitment of the Chinese government and Chinese companies to be leaders in this space. This is a multiple of what the U.S. has generated in terms of patents, I think we have a directive and concentration from the central government in Beijing to drive that, but also I think there's a big appetite of Chinese companies to be leaders, and there's a vast amount of data in China that could be used to train the models, et cetera. So extremely significant. And like we talked about a little while ago, what is going on right now is that these are defensive patents. A lot of them are defensive patents. Any single one of them may not be the end-all, be-all, the thing that's going to make tons of money for these Chinese companies. However, they become bargaining chips, because if there's an application that starts to infringe on one of these patents, then there could be a case by which it could be resolved in a court of law. So I think this is very, very significant because it is setting up essentially speed bumps for competitors to essentially navigate carefully the AI landscape.
Jibu, earlier this month, the United Nations unanimously adopted a resolution. That resolution was actually proposed by China. It's called the Enhanced International Cooperation on Capacity Building of Artificial Intelligence. Quite a mouthful there. It's also known as the Global South Resolution. Now, Zheng Yi is an expert on the UN High-Level Advisory Board on AI. This is what he had to say. Let's listen to him.
In previous global discussions, the focus may have been on the security, ethics, and governance of artificial intelligence. However, for many low and middle-income countries, they lack even the most basic AI infrastructure, let alone innovation and application capabilities. So the original purpose of AI technology was to empower sustainable development and bridge the digital divide. But now this gap has widened, making governance issues exceptionally critical. Therefore, capacity building is a crucial core. Its goal is to help these countries bridge the digital divide and ensure that the benefits of AI reach them.
So, GB, what are your thoughts on that? You know, earlier on we were talking about access of this kind of technology, especially for developing countries.
I think that's a resolution in the right direction. And from my knowledge, 140 countries supported this resolution. So one of the main change we have seen in the recent years, especially with AI, is how the whole governance or how the narrative of governance is shifted from the global north as it always with the previous technology. So this particular resolution focuses on ethical AI development. It focuses on inclusive AI governance from a global point, and looks at closing the compute gap, which is the access to resources, right? And it's focused on addressing AI divide, which means even if a person has to use ChatGPT, they need to have access to something like a laptop or a phone or something like that. And this resolution also focuses on accomplishing UN Sustainable Development Goals through using of AI. So I think this resolution is the right direction globally. And it also shows that how much the other countries have a stake in it. But at the same time, there are countries such as, for example, many African countries where there is no enough data penetration or connectivity. And so when AI developed tools reach these countries, there's an issue of AI bias because of lack of data representing those people. So these are other challenges that we need to address with resolutions like this.
Right. Ian Khan, that resolution that we're talking about, as Jibu pointed out, was co-sponsored by more than 140 countries at the UN, and it's the first UN resolution on international cooperation on AI. You know, we also heard talk about AI capacity building, and a lot of this technology is shrouded in that kind of terminology. What does capacity building mean for the developing world?
It's really being able to work on AI, put resources on AI, put investments in AI, create a framework where your new generations and people graduating can support that development. It means a lot more than just building a platform that's going to help us, work on a specific part of AI. Really, truly to be successful in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you have to be able to have a foundation, and this is the right time to build it. So I'm really glad this resolution has come through, but it's about creating that foundation, and that's what the framework is. That's what the capacity building is that how will we scale in the next 2 years, in the next 5 years? And I think things are going in the right direction in many places, including of all the places in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia, in the United Arab Emirates. India, as we know, China are really doing well with their manpower, with their engineers and software people who are involved in the industry. So I think it's the beginning of a really good period of capacity building in terms of creating solutions, being able to deploy at scale, and doing more than we are doing right now.
Okay, we are going to take a break right now. More of our conversation on China's AI revolution, that's coming up. Stay with us. You're watching The Heat.
The world's currencies are more connected than ever before. The mechanisms that drive the economy are universal. Money moves markets. We explain these trends and show you how the cash in your pocket can have a wide-reaching effect. Because money makes the world go round. Global business.
Welcome back to The Heat. We're discussing China's AI revolution. Andy, this part of the show, I want to talk about another aspect of AI, and that is the political connection to AI. There was a United States professor, Nan Jia. He told the South China Morning Post that AI is the facade of geopolitical tensions. This is not just a technology issue. It is deeply intertwined with politics. What do you make of that statement? What does it mean?
I think that's absolutely correct, because artificial intelligence, many consider a general purpose technology like electricity, like steam power, that can be used for many different things, including military applications. And some even consider it the root of national power, in that whoever masters AI in its various forms will have a more productive economy, a more advanced society, and a more effective military. So I think this can't help but be an inherently political issue. The other point I want to make here, too, just very briefly, we were talking about patents. I think this also demonstrates China's respect for intellectual property and the importance, as we've heard from some of the other guests, that intellectual property plays. The other political aspect to this, geopolitical aspect to this, is that China's focus is really on generative AI broadly applied, especially to areas like agriculture and healthcare, which is so important for accessibility in the global south, which I think is another reason why China's approach, whether that's at the UN, whether that's at other multilateral organizations, is gaining so much support from countries all across the global south.
And Emil, talking about the development of this technology, I mean, there was one technology expert who said that AI has struggled to do math and also to engage in multi-step logical reasoning, and this has led to errors. What can you tell us about this? I mean, is there still a long way to go?
I mean, this is definitely the case. Undeniable. Anybody that's using AI today will see that it does make errors, and no technology is immune from errors. Even as we saw in very mundane and basic technologies on Friday that caused the global outage. So, you know, but certainly technology will keep advancing. AI technology will keep getting better. However, we do have to be careful with things like hallucinations and whatnot that get manifested in some of the AI responses that we get. And this is why on life-dependent technologies and things like military, things like medical, it is critical that AI outputs are monitored and sanitized closely by humans. You know, I do think that that's going to be the case for the foreseeable future. Although I think AI is going to keep improving, is going to keep getting better. However, no technology is perfect. There's going to be errors. However, those errors are going to keep shrinking and getting less and less, and AI is going to keep getting more and more and more powerful.
Right, and I would imagine that in those kinds of technologies that you're talking about, especially medical technology, it would have to be fault-proof. Jibu Elias, there have been discussions, of course there's a big debate going on about the pros and cons of AI. What is the status of those debates right now? Are we seeing in any part of the world some kind of regulatory framework emerging?
I think we already see EU's regulatory framework, which is based on risk on AI, right? So in certain industries like healthcare and finance, the risk of using AI is higher, so you'll have more regulations, while something like a image generation software or a chatbot, the risk might be comparatively little, so where you don't need that kind of regulation. Similarly, we have seen the United Kingdom working on regulation where it has a most industry-based approach. So the UK's idea is that we have existing regulators in fields like finance, healthcare, or commerce, or manufacturing. So let these regulators, existing regulators, regulate AI. That's the approach countries like UK has been following. And we have also seen President Biden's office releasing a statement a few months ago, and many other countries also looking into the aspects of regulating AI, especially from a prevention of misinformation coming out of these generative AI models.
Andy Mok, what are your thoughts on the mechanisms that are needed to regulate AI? I mean, the world's regulators would have to keep up in step with the very fast development of this technology, wouldn't they?
They certainly do, Anand. And I think we see norms, emergent policies coming forth from a lot of the discussions at various levels. But I also want to say that the risk of mistakes, hallucinations from AI might not be as great as they seem, because just like automobiles, we can build cars that are optimized for speed, we can build cars optimized for comfort or for safety. And a lot of the decisions made by the companies that are getting the most media coverage, some of the American companies like OpenAI, et cetera, really are optimized for a kind of a cool factor and not as much for safety. So I think here, regulation plays an important role, and I think that it can also shift the balance in what is emphasized by the companies that are producing these generative AI products and services.
Ian, we also often hear that data is the new gold. I mean, you know, data and the manipulation of data, I mean, it can result in huge profitable revenue streams for many, many companies. So that also brings up the issue of security, privacy concerns as well. I mean, how do individuals protect themselves? What kind of regulatory mechanisms would that need? You know, protect themselves from big corporations, big government involvement as well.
Of course, and to start off with regulations, you know, if we do not have regulations, then it becomes really the wild, wild west. And there's no data privacy. There's no, you know, users are losing their data. People, the world is going to not be a good place. However, having said that, there isn't enough data to go around to train these models, and that's a problem that generative AI platforms are now running into. Now, the golden period again is about the siloed data within organizations, within enterprises, that will really help drive AI into segments that can solve industry problems. For users and people and the common person out there on the street, we do not have much control on many things because we give away the rights to our data when we sign the EULA, when we say, hey, go ahead and use my data in many different ways. Yeah. So really, it's a trust relationship. It's a trust between end users and companies who are using their data and hoping that data is used in the right way.
Okay, and that is where we have to leave it. Thank you to all of you for being with us. That's it for this edition of The Heat. I'm Anand Naidu in Washington, D.C.
The nature of business is to bring value. Business activities in Europe, Asia, and the U.S. reach consumers globally. Trade, manufacturing, energy, high-tech,